Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today, I'm going to tell you about an exciting sci-fi thriller from 2011 called Limitless. Spoilers ahead, so watch out. The story begins with loud banging on a door in a fancy apartment. Inside, the place is filled with boxes, as if someone was packing to leave. There are two dead bodies inside. On the rooftop, Eddie Mora stands at the edge of the balcony, looking down. He takes one foot off the edge, unsure if he should jump. Suddenly, he hears gunshots from the next apartment. Someone is screaming outside his door, begging to be let in. Eddie is disappointed in himself. Should he end it all? Eddie's life was very different a year ago. He looked messy and unmotivated as he walked down the street. He called himself a writer, but he wasn't doing much writing. Instead, he spent his afternoons drinking in bars. He talked to people about his novel, but they didn't believe he actually had a book contract. Deep down, Eddie wasn't sure if he believed it either. Whenever he tried to write, he would stare at the screen and procrastinate. Eventually, he would leave his apartment to drink again. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, still no progress. Things got worse when his girlfriend, Lindy, broke up with him. Eddie didn't see it coming, but to Lindy, it was long overdue. Eddie even thought about proposing to her, but she reminded him of his failed marriage with his ex-wife, Melissa. That marriage didn't end well, and Lindy didn't want to end up the same way. One day, while feeling down and walking home, Eddie bumped into Vernon, his ex-brother-in-law. Eddie wasn't happy to see him. They caught up a little, both lying about how great their lives were going. Vernon invited Eddie for a drink and, during their chat, revealed something interesting, a special drug. Vernon claimed this pill could make Eddie super smart by unlocking his brain's full potential. Eddie didn't believe it at first, but Vernon handed him a free sample along with his business card, just in case he changed his mind. Later that night, feeling miserable, Eddie decided to take the pill. As he entered his building, he ran into Valerie, his landlord's wife, who was always annoyed with him. She started yelling about his overdue rent. Then, something strange happened. The drug kicked in. Eddie suddenly noticed small details about her and his surroundings that he never had before. He realized Valerie was stressed about her college work, so he offered to help her with her essay. She was surprised but accepted. After helping her, they ended up spending the night together. When Eddie returned to his apartment, he saw how messy and dirty it was. With his newfound focus, he cleaned everything up and finally sat down to write. This time, the words flowed effortlessly. The next morning, the effects of the pill wore off, but Eddie still had the pages he wrote. Excited, he took them to his publisher, who called him back quickly, praising his work. Eddie felt hopeful for the first time in a long time. Wanting more of the pill, Eddie went to see Vernon. But Vernon looked nervous and beaten up. He agreed to give Eddie more pills if he ran a few errands first. Eddie picked up Vernon's dry cleaning and some breakfast. But when he returned, he found Vernon dead, and the apartment trashed. Panicked, Eddie called the police. While waiting for them, he realized that the attackers didn't find the pills. Searching quickly, he discovered the stash, along with some cash and Vernon's black notebook full of contacts. Just then, the police arrived. At the station, the detective questioned Eddie suspiciously. Later, Melissa, Eddie's ex-wife, called and told him to stay away from Vernon's funeral. Eddie left the station, feeling paranoid that someone was following him. Back at home, Eddie counted the cash and took another pill. Soon, his life completely changed. He got a new haircut, stylish clothes, and finished his novel in record time. He learned to play the piano in days and mastered several languages effortlessly. Eddie used his skills to impress people, win at poker, and even started helping his sick aunt with medical advice. Eddie became successful, meeting rich and powerful people. He impressed businessmen and even landed a job offer. But he wanted more. He needed money to fuel his ambitions, so he borrowed $100,000 from a dangerous loan shark. With his new intelligence, Eddie doubled the money in a short time through trading and investments. As Eddie climbed higher in the financial world, he got the attention of Carl Van Loon, a wealthy and powerful businessman. They set up a meeting, and Eddie impressed him with his knowledge and confidence. Eddie also tried to win Lindy back. Over dinner, he spoke fluent Italian, charming her. She was impressed by his transformation, and they got back together. But soon, Eddie started feeling strange. He felt like someone was always watching him. One night, after a fancy party, Eddie blacked out. He couldn't remember what happened in the last 18 hours. The next morning, he felt sick and confused. He decided to stop taking the pills and focus on his work, but without them, he struggled. During an important meeting with Van Loon, Eddie couldn't focus. He was distracted by a news report about a woman he spent the night with. She was found dead. Panicked, Eddie left the meeting, worried he might have done something terrible. At home, Eddie searched Vernon's black book and called the contacts. He found out that almost everyone who took the pill was either dead or very sick. Then, Eddie saw a mysterious man watching him from a nearby bench. He panicked and ran, but the man chased him through the streets. Eddie runs through the city, trying to escape the mysterious man following him. He finally manages to lose him by hopping into a taxi. Feeling scared and desperate, he goes to meet Melissa, his ex-wife. She looks worried when she sees him. Melissa reveals that she also took the same drug in the past. She barely survived when she stopped taking it, and she warns Eddie to be careful. She tells him that if he stops taking the drug too suddenly, it could be very dangerous, even deadly. Eddie's condition keeps getting worse. When he reaches home, the loan shark he borrowed money from is waiting for him. The man grabs Eddie's last pill and takes it himself. As Eddie rushes to the bank to withdraw the money he owes, he notices that the loan shark doesn't seem affected by the drug yet. He hands over the money, and the man claims he feels great, though no signs of intelligence have shown up yet. Feeling helpless, Eddie stumbles into Lindy's office and tells her everything. He begs her to go to her apartment and bring back the pills he hid there. Lindy rushes home and finds them easily, but while heading back, she notices someone following her. Nervous, she calls Eddie. He tells her to stay calm, but soon her taxi gets stuck in traffic. The mysterious man approaches her. Eddie tells Lindy to run, and she takes off through a nearby park. The man chases after her. In panic, she asks two guys in the park for help, but the man coldly stabs them both. Lindy keeps running but soon finds herself trapped and scared. Eddie urges her to take one of the pills, so she does. Instantly, everything becomes clear to her, just like it did for Eddie the first time he took it. Now, with her mind working at full speed, Lindy cleverly escapes the man. She finally reaches Eddie and hands him a pill. They check into a hotel to stay safe for the night. The next morning, Lindy is packing to leave. Eddie tries to convince her that he will figure everything out and stop taking the pill soon. But Lindy has seen the effects of the drug and doesn't believe him. Eddie is focused on the benefits, while Lindy only sees the danger. Despite his promises, she leaves him. Later, Eddie finds the loan shark waiting for him again, demanding more pills. Eddie gives him a few to keep him satisfied for now. Realizing he needs protection, Eddie hires 2 bodyguards to follow him everywhere. He then returns to Carl Van Loon's office to apologize for missing their meeting. Fortunately, Van Loon was already impressed with Eddie and still offers him the job. With the help of the drug, Eddie becomes a financial genius and helps Van Loon broker the biggest business merger in history. But Eddie knows his supply of pills won't last forever. So, he hires a chemist and offers him $2 million to recreate the drug in 6 months. One day, while having lunch, a detective approaches Eddie. He tells him that Eddie was seen leaving the hotel on the night the young woman was murdered. Eddie knows he's in trouble, so he hires the best lawyer to defend him. At an important business meeting, Eddie notices that one of the key investors, Atwood, looks very sick. The signing of the merger is postponed until Atwood recovers. Later, Eddie talks to Van Loon, who warns him not to become his competition. Van Loon suspects that Eddie has an advantage that isn't based on talent or hard work. Eddie returns to his hotel, only to find his room trashed. Realizing he needs a safer place, he buys the luxurious apartment seen at the beginning of the story. Meanwhile, the loan shark reappears, looking completely transformed and confident. He demands more pills and threatens to expose Eddie's legal troubles if he refuses. The next day, Eddie waits for Atwood to show up and finalize the merger, but his wife arrives instead. She says Atwood is very sick but will sign the papers when he recovers. As she leaves, Eddie sees the mysterious man who was chasing him earlier getting into the car with her. Eddie realizes that Atwood's illness is due to the same drug. Later, Eddie meets with his lawyer at the police station and is put in a lineup. Luckily, he isn't identified. Eddie ignores the loan shark's demands and returns to Van Loon's office, where he watches the news. Atwood is dying, and Van Loon is worried about the merger falling apart. Eddie knows he needs another pill but can't find his stash. Suddenly, a package arrives for him. When he opens it, he finds the severed hands of his bodyguards inside. Terrified, he rushes home. At his apartment, Eddie watches the news. Atwood's wife is lying about the merger, and Eddie realizes her lawyer is also his lawyer, clearly working against him. Suddenly, the loan shark arrives at Eddie's door. Eddie doesn't answer. Instead, he searches his apartment, desperately looking for a hidden pill. He finds one but accidentally drops it just as the loan shark's men burst inside. They grab Eddie and demand to know where the rest of the pills are. The loan shark injects the drug directly into his veins, claiming it's more effective that way. As his men search Eddie's apartment, Eddie seizes the moment and stabs the loan shark. With the drug now in his system, Eddie's mind races, and he quickly kills the remaining henchmen. Meanwhile, Atwood dies in the hospital. Eddie goes there and meets the mysterious man who was following him. Surprisingly, the man now works for Eddie. They track down Atwood's lawyer, who had stolen the pills, and recover them. 1 year later, Eddie has written a book and is now running for the Senate. Van Loon visits him in his office, revealing that he knows all about the drug. He tells Eddie that he shut down his secret lab and offers to supply him with the pills in exchange for political favors. However, Eddie surprises him. He confidently tells Van Loon that he doesn't need the drug anymore. Eddie claims he has learned how to reprogram his brain and keep all the benefits without taking the pills. He sees everything clearly now and is unstoppable. Eddie refuses Van Loon's offer, making it clear that he won't be controlled by anyone. Van Loon leaves, impressed but frustrated. Eddie walks to a restaurant and meets Lindy there. He looks confident and in control, ready for whatever comes next. Thank you for watching and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.